In today's episode, when a new IT department head steals the prestige email address from longtime employee and lives to regret it. The case of the missing password reset prompt. I have no internet connection. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. When a new IT department head steals the prestige email address from longtime employee and lives to regret it. A number of years back, I was working for a company that had been around for many years. I was only relatively new myself, but there were still a couple of old guard senior engineers around who had been there from the start. The kind that knows where all the obscure, undocumented insider stuff is and can fix most problems in 5 seconds that the rest of us might take hours to solve. One of the guys in particular, who I shall refer to as Joe, a bearded and jovial gent with a very Steve Wozniak persona, was always happy for us to approach him with our questions and welcomed us to leverage his vast knowledge of how the company's sprawling IT infrastructure worked to make our lives easier and cope with the constant unrealistic expectations of upper management. He was a real, old-school engineer, someone who loved their job and was well respected by everyone around the department. So when his friend, the current department head, a man of comparable knowledge and experience, retired and was replaced from the outside with a young and brash one with a business degree and little technical knowledge, who was also called Joe, it was a big change for everyone. Fortunately for us, he didn't interfere too much with the technical aspects of our day-to-day jobs. At least at first. When the company first started out, they weren't too concerned with formality when it came to email address policy. In later years, as the company had grown, they tightened the bolts with an official policy of issuing staff with a more formal address of firstname.lastname@department.countrycode.company.com, mailto firstname.lastname@department.company.com, but those who were around from the early days retained their original name@company.com, mailto name@company.com addresses as an alias. It was somewhat of a status symbol and sign of authority in the company to have one, and those that did would use that version as their sending address and proudly have it in their email signatures and on their business cards. The retired head had one such address, as did Joe, in the form of joe@company.com, mailto joe@company.com, and you always knew when you saw an email come into the inbox from somebody with one of these addresses that they were someone important who had been around for a while. Most of the department heads were long-term employees who used them, and it wasn't long before the new IT head noticed this aspect of our corporate culture and clearly envied his peers. But as a new employee, he was stuck with his formal email address, and they weren't issuing new legacy email addresses of this kind unless they were for someone way up the food chain. Even as head of IT, he had no authority to claim one, which is why when one day he spotted an email from Joe using his legacy address, he saw an opportunity to get what he was coveting. So as the tale goes, he called Joe into his office and had an exchange that went something like this. IT head: "Hey Joe, great work on the capacity report and getting it to me so quickly. We should be able to get approval from finance to expand our storage way sooner than I thought." Joe: "Not a problem. Is there anything else you needed from me for it?" IT head: "Nope, everything is there, thanks. But I happened to notice when you sent it through you were using a different email address, a little different from the rest of the team." Joe: "Yes, that's the one I've always used from when I started, and everyone here knows to reach me at. Also, some of our older systems and scripts we still use from the early days were hard-coded to use it as well, so I'm still actively using it to get critical alerts, and I've got rules set up to forward them on to the relevant team addresses we use these days, since the only alternative is to budget a major project to go through all our legacy stuff to change it, and we were never able to get approval for that with everything else going on around here." IT head: "I've got no problem with that, but I was interested in getting one of those kind of addresses for me. It would make it easier for people to, know I'm the head of this department rather than just another employee here. My predecessor had one, so it should be no problem for me to have one as well too, right? Can you make that happen?" Joe: "I'm sorry, I wish I could, but it's HR that makes the decision, and it's their policy is to only issue personal addresses at the top corporate domain level now for C-level recruits and their immediate assistants." IT head: You've been here for a long time, surely there isn't a way or someone you know who can make this happen. Joe, I'm sorry, it's a decision way above my pay grade. I'd be happy to put a request in for you to the head of HR to see if they could do it as a favor, but I'm pretty certain what their answer will be. IT head, annoyed, okay thanks, do it, and let's see what happens. Joe goes and logs the request, but of course the head of HR knocks it back, citing policy, and not wanting to set a precedent even as a favor to Joe. Joe goes back to give the IT head the bad news. Joe knocks, hey, you know that request I put through to try and get you a top-level email address? Unfortunately HR have knocked it back. I did my best to try and push it through, but they were firm on our current corporate policy of not issuing any new ones except for those at the very top. IT head, visibly unhappy, I'm sorry to hear that, are you sure you did everything you could? Joe, yes, it's out of either of our hands unfortunately. IT head, fine then. And Joe was right. There was no way the IT head was going to be issued with a brand new personal address. However, his position did allow how to authorize the reassignment of existing email addresses to staff, which was normally used to forward mail and alerts still being sent internally to staff who had left the company. He soon realized this was possible and formed a plan, calling Joe back into his office for another conversation. IT head, hey Joe, you know how we can't get new personal email addresses created, but we can still reassign an existing one into my name, right? Joe, frowning, we can do that, yes. You have the authority to have the email address of anyone who has left redirected or assigned to anyone else if you so wish. Did you want your predecessor's address? I mean, we can do it, but it would confuse a lot of people if they saw your email coming from someone who is gone. IT head, what about email addresses of existing staff? Joe, frowning harder and seeing where this was going, you do have the authority, but it would still confuse people, and you would be getting all the legacy alerts and notifications which would make you responsible for ensuring they flow through to the right people when they arrive. IT head, I think I can handle forwarding a couple of lousy emails whenever I see them. I have a greater need for visibility here, and there is no business requirement for you to have one, so start the process of transferring joe@company.com, mail to joe@company.com, across to me immediately. Let me know once it's done so I can let everyone know. So poor Joe was forced to dig his own grave and give up the email address he had held since day one. He definitely wasn't happy about it, but did as he was instructed. Falling back on his regular corporate address, he sent an email out to the immediate team and his contacts to let them know what was happening and to please use his full address moving forward to contact him. At the same time, the IT head proudly sent out a company-wide email broadcast letting everyone know that his email address had been updated and could now be reached at joe@company.com, mail to joe@company.com, as the head of IT. Weeks went by and it was clear he was taking every opportunity to send out emails using his new address. New stationery was issued along with business cards clearly showing his position and contact address. He was clearly reveling in having a coveted address and the prestige and recognition it instantly gave him, especially when dealing with other offices and people who didn't know he was only a relative newcomer. Life was good, that is, until one fateful morning when he wasn't in his office browsing Facebook like he usually would be doing when everyone else arrived. Turned out he had forgotten about his responsibility to forward through important notifications when they came through to him. He had set up a rule to handle them, sure, but not to forward them as promised, but instead deleting them directly from his inbox without notice. One particular alert dealt with backup failures for a particularly important and long-term defense contract. One of our key SLAs was to ensure daily incremental and weekly full backups being performed on one of these old legacy systems that Joe had mentioned to him, both verbally and in writing. The media in an old backup unit had failed and was repeatedly notifying the issue. It was normally a simple fix, replace the faulty media in the backup unit and restart a full backup run, but with no alerts being sent through, nobody knew there was a problem. So when a request came through from the client to perform a restore of the previous week's data after an accidental deletion, that backup team found, to their horror, that no backups had been running for the past several weeks and the data had been lost. The client was not amused. The CEO with whom they had a close relationship was even less so. The IT head attempted to throw Joe under the bus when word came down that the company was going to incur a massive rebate for the SLA breach, but Joe in his wisdom had ensured he had done a complete CYA when handing over his email address, including email exchanges with the IT head highlighting the importance of the alerts and to ensure they went to the right people, including detailed instructions on how to set up forwarding rules and where to send them. All completely ignored. HR policy was specific when it came to important email. It was the clear responsibility of the recipient to ensure they were handled accordingly, and the IT head had clearly failed in his accepted responsibilities. He didn't last probation and was gone within the next month. Everyone was wondering who we would be getting in the position next. HR and management were tight-lipped on the topic, and there was plenty of speculation within the department about what might happen next. But everyone was smiling when they walked in on the Monday to see Joe sitting in the IT head office. In the wake of what happened, management decided in their wisdom that the IT department should have a head who actually knew something about IT and tapped Joe to take the seat. He hung on for a few more years before retiring or moving on, but during his tenure he was one of the best IT managers I have ever worked for, and the position didn't change him from being the friendly, helpful and supportive teacher that he was. I was sad to see him go, but while he was still with us I always smiled when I saw his emails coming through to us from the old, friendly address of joe@company.com, mail to joe@company.com, which he had reclaimed and had been returned to its rightful owner. The case of the missing password reset prompt. I just dealt with a ticket that I think I'll remember for quite some time, because it's both so very simple, and also basically impossible to diagnose without seeing the screen yourself. So we get a ticket from $problem user. I came back from lunch, and my laptop says my password expired and must be changed. I tried to change it, and it doesn't work. Now, $problem user has a lot of password issues. To the point where I have a granular password policy set up just for them, which gives them 10 attempts to sign in before locking them out, instead of the usual 3 we have set for everyone else. I'm immediately suspicious. So I ask, what happens when you try to change your password at the password update dialog? It says the password didn't match. Gotcha. I'm thinking, you typoed the password and need to do it again. Given that it's this user, however, I send them a screenshot of the password reset dialog with instructions. Put in your old password here, your new password here, and retype your new password again. Which is when I get back a reply that just makes me go, huh? There's only 2 password prompts. One for an old password and one for a new password. My first thought? Crap, they're being phished. That's not the Windows password reset dialog. So I remote into their machine to see what they're seeing, and no, it's not a phishing site. It's the Windows password reset dialog with only 2 prompts. They enter their old password, enter a new password, then get told the passwords don't match. That's when I noticed the scroll bar to the right of the dialog, nearly hidden in the background image. Hey $problem user, could you scroll down for me? Behold, the last dialog appears. The user had their screen set to 175% zoom, and it pushed the final prompt down below the bottom of the password dialog screen's view window. Just a nice reminder that it's not always the user's fault. I have no internet connection. Okay, a little bit of background. I work for BPO IT Service Desk voice account, and the employees of our client have these physical VPN routers. These routers connect between the computer to their internet modem. Like modem is LAN connected to the VPN router, and again VPN router LAN connected to the company. The VPN router will not give internet connection, will just get connection from modem, then converts it to the company VPN so that the computer is automatically in VPN with login, but if there is an issue with the VPN router itself, then you will not be getting any connection at all. Now on with the call. I am no expert with connectivity issues, I just follow our documents here to troubleshoot issue. The calls comes and verified the caller's account to the company. Then she says that she getting no internet connection to her work computer. So probe a little here. What confuses me here is her logic that she know the internet is not working on the computer while the computer is turned off. I asked if it was on earlier than you turned it off for now to troubleshoot with the VPN router. She said no, it was not turned on today. So I asked again on how she knew there is no connection to the work. She just repeats in irritated way that she just knows that it's not working. So I asked to just turn on the computer to check the connection. For a moment she didn't want to since we didn't do anything yet, but I said to just try for now. After a few SEC of boot up time, the computer is online and no issue with the connection. After we established that there is no issue on the connection, she just continued with her second issue without any comment on her first issue, like it didn't happen. To this day I still don't know how she just knew that there is no connection. What upsets me a little here isn't even sorry or thank me for helping her on any of her issues.